Bitcoin Radio. It's your man, Joe Blackburn, and I'm coming at you with another awesome podcast. Today, I'm going to have a special guest, Mr. Alex Saunders. He is the CEO and the founder of Nugget's News. They're actually the largest cryptocurrency podcast and YouTube channel in the entire country of Australia. You know, I think it's a really awesome honor. And, you know, Alex has been doing things like throughout the space, you know, on a social level and as a news source for several years now. And, you know, he's really built up a large following, but, you know, he's also built up the just this appearance and this, he carries this aura around him that, you know, he's really intrigued with the space and he's very genuine in his concepts. And I've always found an attraction towards that and the way that he presents his material. And obviously you'll get a chance to hear from Alex today and you'll be able to kind of get a firsthand look and experience with him. You know, obviously I'm going to encourage everybody to check him out. I've been really impressed, especially lately, you know, as I've been paying more attention, as I've been doing my own podcast, you start realizing, hey, you gotta understand what the rest of the folks are doing. So it's really just a unique opportunity to have other podcasters step up, kind of give their experiences. And he's Australian, and Australia's got so much going on right now. I mean, you know, between the cash ban, you know, several things in their own economy, and you know, there's just a lot of relevancy to what cryptocurrency and blockchain and Bitcoin specifically bring to that country. And I think they're really kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of ways. You know, I won't just talk about this for too much longer. Let me go ahead and bring him on here shortly. But hey, folks, let me just real quick reminder. You know, if you have somebody who you want to be heard, if you want somebody to come be a guest, you know, send me an email, joe@bitcoinradio.com. Obviously, you know, I'm open to at least having the conversation. You know, if I can't fit them in or if it's going to be several months before there's a spot, you know, you just never know when something's going to pop up, right? It's always an opportunity. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward. Let's bring on Alex. What's up, Alex? How's it going, man?
Very good. Thanks so much for having me on, Joe. I'm really looking forward to this.
Dude, no, it's my pleasure, man. You guys have been kicking butt over there, dude. I actually just saw that Shapeshift, they announced you guys as a top 10 podcast in the world, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. I wasn't sure that they were even aware of us down here in Australia, but it was awesome to get on that list.
No, man, no, like that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like it really is. It's a lot of credibility, but it should be a lot of you know, some professional reward for you, I hope. You know, I mean, I know just from my minimal time doing my own podcast, but obviously I've been doing live videos for some time. You know, I just know how much effort actually goes into creating content. And when you're just doing it for fun, like you're just talking about things you like, but when you're doing it at a credible level where you're an actual journalist, and although I'm not an actual journalist, I have to at least adhere to some of those principles, right? I mean, there's so much that goes into being credible, being honest, being authentic, being transparent. I mean, like, where do you even start, Alex?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. We've made a video every day for over 2 years now. And you think about how did you do that? And it's the majority of your time is spent listening to content and reading all the news and then sort of boiling it down to what people find interesting.
That's so true. I mean, dude, every day a video.
Yeah, so we do 5 on YouTube and then 2 in our private Facebook group we have, yeah.
Wow, yeah. No, and you guys are the largest Australian YouTube channel and podcast, correct? I think I said that right.
Yes, I believe so now, yeah.
Let's rewind a little bit, Alex. I mean, like the audacity for you to even like say, I want to do this. How did you even like decide? I mean, I have my own story, right? You know, and I've told it to this community in this podcast before, but let's talk about you. Like what, like it takes a special person to want to put themselves out there in crypto. It's one of the ugliest and meanest spaces in all of tech and really in all of the world at times.
Yeah, I probably found that out as well after a little while, particularly when you're quite little and everyone wants to support you. And then once you get a bit bigger, there's always a bit of that tall poppy syndrome, I guess. But my story starts back around the GFC, the global financial crisis, where my parents gave me some shares for my 21st birthday, showing my age a little bit. And then the markets crashed, as you know. And I said to mum and dad, do we have to like pay our share manager to lose half our money? And they said yes. Yeah. And I thought, geez, I'm sure that I could do a better job than that if I learned how this works. So I started to learn about shares, and then you learn about money and banks and debt, and you watch all those documentaries about the GFC. So I really got into all that, and then started trading some options and futures as well. And I was studying pharmacy at the time, and I graduated and I was working in pharmacy, but investing was always my passion. And then I found Bitcoin on Zero Hedge in 2012 and started to read about that. And there wasn't many YouTube videos at the time. There's a bit more information came out in 2013. Then just started annoying friends and family with all that for a few years. We had a little Facebook group called World News where we used to post stuff about the economy and what's going on. And then in 2017, as you know, it sort of all blew up, and that's when the Facebook groups, Twitter, YouTube, and all that stuff really started coming together.
Yeah, man, it's so interesting. Like, just to think back just a couple years ago, it doesn't seem that long ago, but at the same time, it feels like a decade. It's just this mix of like, it happened so quick, but man, I am exhausted. I mean, it's just, it'll take so much out of you. And 2017 for the most part was a wonderful year for everybody in crypto. It was, you didn't have to be very good to be right. And and we found that out. I mean, and I'm a product of that whole space and craze myself, just being out there and putting my name out there enough to get some, at least, where people relate to me, and that's never, it's never been my intent to be, a podcaster or a YouTube creator or some sort of influencer. And you may be able to say similar concepts, but you've been a little bit more structured in the way you've done things, Alex. So, let's kind of take me through when it was good, right? Everything was fine, but let's talk about 2018, man. Like, when we really hit that winter, like, where did you see and how did you see the community react? And if we are to move forward, was that appropriate? Is that how you expect people to act?
Yeah, so just if we rewind to the top of the bubble, I'd been doing more and more content and cutting back my hours at work, and I wanted to take that leap and go full time. But we had, my wedding was coming up, and we wanted to start a family. My wife was kind of like, you're going to quit pharmacy to do YouTube? Like, you're crazy. And I thought, no, I'm going to take the leap. Yeah.
You're a pharmacist.
Yeah, I'm a pharmacist. So.
That's a lot of school.
I know it was.
We'll talk about that later. Keep going.
And then, so the day I quit was around my 30th birthday, and that was around the same day that Bitcoin futures launched in the mid-December near that peak. And if you had told me that Bitcoin was going to go down for the next 18 months, I probably wouldn't have quit my job. But that happened, and we kept making content. We did tell people to take profits in December during that peak, so I guess that worked in our favor. And there was still a lot going on, as you know. Like, there was so much happening in the world of alts, ICOs, then IEOs, security tokens were the next big thing. So there was plenty to talk about even during that crypto winter. But if you have a look at the stats, I'm sure you guys know, the engagement dropped off a cliff. And one of the things we talk about a lot is sentiment. And the only day that we've ever lost subscribers on YouTube was the day that Bitcoin bottomed. And it's almost like looking at the Bitcoin chart where there's the capitulation where people just give in and throw in the towel.
Exactly right. No, it's a great indicator too. Like, I remember those same numbers, obviously maybe in a different format, but we saw, and when CCT wasn't even 100,000 members back in the end of 2017. And I remember very clearly, going from about 88% engagement of the entire group, 88% within 30 days had engaged in that group in some capacity. And then at one point we got all the way down to like 40%, which I later found out that's 40% is still double the most engaged groups that are not crypto related or sports related,
Oh yeah.
Or in news, sports, and cryptos tend to be the most engaged groups that you can get. But everything else is like, at a 10 to 20% level. So even 40% engagement in a month is still incredible, but it didn't feel like that, did it?
I think that's a testament just to how interesting crypto is when people go down the rabbit hole, because we've now expanded a bit and we work with some, like social media marketing teams for some of our content. And they say the same thing. They're like, crypto and the content, it's just off the charts in terms of engagement and interest compared to like every other industry.
No, it really is, Alex. And it's a great point. So, during 2018, you guys you grinded out, you made it through, and then we had the capitulation. Some people don't even think we've actually hit it, right? I mean, that's to be determined. I can tell you right now, I saw sentiment change just like you, and I have felt the social structures start reestablishing themselves. And the most beautiful thing about come out of all of this is expectations have simmered, right? Now, some expectations are that Bitcoin's going to go back down. Altcoins are never going to recover. Nothing's ever going to happen again. And some of that's fair. I don't blame people for thinking that, especially if your only memories of Bitcoin are going down for a very long time. And alts have yet to recover from that, and most of them, and at least a lot of them will not. A lot of them are going to stay exactly where they're at the bottom. I do anticipate that we'll see some recover, but that's neither here nor there. But, as this 2018 came to an end and you saw this transition back into bottom to moving up, do you think that we are more mature? Are we established enough now as a core group, as a population, as a community, just all together in crypto, to be able to handle another altcoin run without going bananas?
I think that we are definitely going to see another, like, call it alt season, call it alt cycle, whatever. Like, I've been through 5 or 6 of these since 2012, where it was, Namecoin and Peercoin and Aurora Coin back in 2013 and whatnot. So people are always going to come in and see the price of a Bitcoin or these other top 10 coins and say, that's too expensive. What else is pumping at the moment? And unless, like, that human cycle of euphoria and excitement and getting rich quick, that's never going to change. So as long as that's out there, and there's on ramps, and there's more on ramps now than back in 2017. So I think it's going to happen. And some people say Bitcoin has to make a new high. I mean, even a couple of weeks ago, we saw the alts pump pretty hard, the top 10 or 20 for a couple of weeks, and look at that excitement again. And the Bitcoin whales know these games. They're going to rotate out of Bitcoin and pump alts because they know people get excited, and then they can rotate back into Bitcoin and increase their stack. So there's all these different reasons why alts are going to pump at some capacity, but is it going to be the same as 2017 where everything goes up? I don't think so, because back then there was such low liquidity and people didn't really know how to sell. And now the majority of the market have been through a cycle and they know how to take profits. A lot of people, was their first investing experience. I think so much has changed now. And in terms of the overall market, look at what's happened with Bitcoin going from those high fees. We've got SegWit adoption that's making Bitcoin more efficient. We've got the Lightning Network. We've got custody solutions. The Bitcoin brand name and awareness has just matured. They're talking about it on CNBC every week. There's all these,
not every day.
Yeah, there's all these legitimate people now giving out education around crypto. And it's not a fad that people thought this is a bubble, this is a fad. More and more people are here. And I think the big boys would step in at low prices. If it gets back down to 5, for example, I don't think anyone could say, well, hold on, Bitcoin is way worse off than it was way back then. Things have definitely got better. There's more people, more engagement, more need for Bitcoin with negative interest rates, cash bans, all that stuff. So yeah, I definitely think we're heading in the right direction.
No, agreed. And it's a good entrance into that next topic. But I want to make a point real quick before we do jump into that. And that is, I think about 2017 and the altcoin run. I mean, that was 100% a result of Ethereum going up so much. I mean, without Ethereum going up to $1,300 on the way up, increasing the market cap, creating this inflated idea of what the currency or what the Ethereum was actually worth, and then allowing to buy into these ICOs with this inflated value that although obviously Ethereum is actually kind of the dark sheep when it comes to this because they don't really have a cap, right? But, at the same time, it's still blockchain. There's still a lot of principles that we abide by, but the price was inflated. It should never have gotten that high, period. It just should never have. But by human greed and by our own, selfish desires. I mean, Ethereum and crypto as a whole, we went kaboom. Now, without Ethereum going kaboom, how much money was there actually to put into all of the ICOs?
Yeah, and I'm a big Ethereum bull. So back in the day,
I love Ethereum, by the way.
Back in the day, I definitely was hesitant to touch any other coins, particularly after getting burnt on a few of those altcoins in 2013. And then Ethereum came along, and I kind of missed investing in the Ethereum ICO because a lot of the Bitcoin maximalists were saying, this is a shitcoin and whatnot. And then I got in at around $6 when I actually saw the value in the smart contracts. And then
that's when I got it $6.
The DAO happened, and it was a bit of a rocky road there. But once that took off, it showed people that, okay, there is other use cases, and this isn't trying to really compete with Bitcoin even. Smart contracts is a good application. And then the ICO boom is the thing that caused the majority of the run. So everyone needed ETH to get into ICOs, and then all the ICOs were locking up ETH. So you were taking a lot of the supply away. So the actual amount that could be bought and traded, that's why the price just went nuts. And then that unwound in 2018 when people were dumping and selling their ETH. So look, I think DeFi is going to pick up a lot of that slack and staking of ETH and whatnot. There's other things that are going to replace that. So I think Ethereum is going to make new all-time highs if they make that transition to ETH 2.0 smoothly.
Yeah, and I'll say it 1,000 times. Somebody is going to figure out how to make a relevant crypto token that makes sense for both the company and the investor, the buyer, the holder. I mean, it's only a matter of time. In fact, I can personally think of several ideas just like on the concept alone that fit not just one niche, that can fit and encompass so many different things. And I used this actually on a podcast the other day. but I'm not going to say the name of the company. I'm not trying to highlight them or endorse them by any means. I just like this concept. And I'm not even saying that this is safe or that you should participate in this. It's just a cool concept. Let's say you have a hotspot, or you're a coffee shop. You can literally put your internet up for sale per, how many megabytes you're using, right? And you can walk in there and say, of course, in the United States and Australia, we're really lucky. We're fortunate to have, internet all over the place. But that's not always the case for everywhere. And, your internet and your electricity is very precious. And we're capped on gigabytes on phones for some people still, right? So I don't know what the deal is in Australia, but here, you get free or unlimited data, but after 21 gigabytes, it slows down tremendously. Well, I don't want to use my data for something silly, right? I want to use it so I can stream my Netflix, or I can, watch my Facebook videos for 3 hours straight, right? It's one of those things. Now, if you could monetize that by just your hotspot, your phone, like if you maybe my data becomes less useful for me because now I can monetize and make money while I'm just sitting there.
And they were some of the best early ideas. And I've definitely been saying for a long time that I think there's going to be a shift back to some of these older, what people perceive as boring projects, but they're the ones that were building things that needed to be decentralized early. So, the Augur prediction markets, or like the Filecoin and the Golem, that's like valuing how much is decentralized file storage and computation. How much is all that worth, truly having it decentralized? And that's the things that I definitely think, you can tokenize that.
Well, speaking of use case, the number one use case for all crypto is literally Bitcoin as a currency, right? And, with today's day and age, something that me and you have discussed in private before is how the cash ban in Australia is a really big wake up call. Like, hello, this is a big deal. And although people can make sense of it and, it's reasonable or rational, or, oh yeah, this is the reason why I might want to do that. That's one more freedom that's taken from people, just one little piece at a time. Before you know it, you don't have enough freedom to even fight back, and, I'm not saying physically fight back, but I'm not taking that away from it either. Tell me, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so if you had told me a few years ago that Australia would be going down this path, and we've seen, like, people talk about China and the policing of what they do and the social credit score, but they're like trialing that in Perth, and I've heard in Northern Territory in Australia. So we've got cameras looking into people's cars now, and they say it's to catch people on their phones. But who's collecting all that data and monitoring it? Australia is really becoming a surveillance state. Now, lately, they've been talking about this cash ban, and they say it's for over $10,000, but then the same politicians have said they want to bring that down to $5,000 or $2,000. And we know that they've cut interest rates. We're down now into 0.75. Around the world, it's going negative. So, I don't see why we wouldn't go negative the same as other places. And at that stage, they have to ban cash. Otherwise, people are going to take money out of banks. That's going to be a bank run. And they just can't allow people to store their wealth in cash at a time when there's negative interest rates. So it all ties back together with that storyline, but very few people figure it out. And it's frustrating, I know, for the people probably listening to this. 90% of your friends and family are just, asleep at the wheel. They don't even care about this stuff when you tell them, until it's too late.
Yeah, it's a great point, Alex. And, I think about that. It's only a matter of time until bad things happen, right? Whether it be as simple as there was another earthquake today in California, right? Which was yesterday for you at this point, but today for me still as an American and time of this recording. And, whether it be a terrorist attack or unfortunate, incident, or like just around a school or whatever it might be, car wrecks or, something serious like a war, right? Bad things happen, and bad things happen to governments. Bad things happen to economies. And something's going to happen. It's only a matter of time.
Well, in Australia, we've regularly seen the ATM networks down, the payment networks down. The power went out in a city yesterday that doesn't have a lot of cash, and people couldn't get food or fuel for 3 days. And you're thinking, what on earth is going to happen if that happens in a city or even a bigger town and we don't have cash? Like, people live day by day these days. And in this rural town, it took 3 days to get it back up and running.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I'm from a small town. I live in a small town. And, I know I can, think back to like when we have hurricane scares or hurricanes in the Gulf and it looks like it's heading towards us, right? If we lose power, it's going to be for several days. And so we're prepared. We have generators, et cetera. But if I can't transact with money, then there's a huge issue. I can't go I can't do anything that's necessary to survive at that point. And I mean, most people don't keep cash on them, including myself. Bitcoin is literally the single easiest answer to all of this. Now, how is this accepted? Like as Australia goes, I feel like Australia is ahead of most of the Western countries. I feel like there's just implementations. I think that there's just this culture of understanding that this is next. Whereas I don't have that same thing here in the United States. Kind of give me an overview.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the cash ban, they've been throwing around this legislation that if crypto ever became mainstream, they'd probably include crypto in the ban as well. So you couldn't do large payments. But I mean, how on earth you can police me sending you money over Bitcoin or over Monero or something? Like, it's just going to be impossible to do unless you're someone that has all your crypto on an exchange and all your details, and then they can maybe police it a little bit more. But generally, since 2015, when a little company called Living Room of Satoshi started in Australia, they actually won Best Startup that year. They allow you to pay any bill in Australia with a number of cryptocurrencies. They allow you to do bank transfers and pay your mates with crypto. So that's very much, widespread now. People paying millions of dollars of bills every day through that company.
Sure.
And then we have Travel by Bit, who you might have heard of. Binance have invested in them now. Brisbane Airport in Australia, every shop there now accepts a number of cryptocurrencies directly. So you can scan with your wallet and pay for your coffee. You can book your flights to Australia, to the Great Barrier Reef, all these sort of things directly through this company. So there's kind of this mix of merchants that are directly accepting crypto, and that's up to a few hundred across Australia now. And then we've also got the 10x cards, all these different payment cards, and the websites that allow you to pay your bills in crypto. So effectively, you can easily live off crypto in Australia.
Yeah, and in the major cities, obviously, we have Bitcoin ATMs and all over the world, whether it's Australia, whether it's Thailand, whether it's, Singapore, wherever, right? United States. And, those are nice, but they're huge. I hate to use the word rip off, but they make Coinbase look like your best friend, right? You're talking about paying 10% or losing 10% on every transaction that you do from a Coinbase or from a Bitcoin ATM. Although, in a case of emergency, I'm glad they exist. I'm really glad they exist, but it's not something that's really possible without taking a huge hit. So, with the implementation of, like, in the United States, we have BitPay. BitPay is fully licensed in the United States to operate as a bank, and I think you can say what you want. I mean, you got to use your Bitcoin at some point, right? And if you're going to use your Bitcoin, if you really want to really go to war with the government, they're ultimately going to win because you don't live on the blockchain, just your Bitcoin does. And so they can make your real life suck as much as they want it to. And you have to abide by the rules. You pay taxes, you got to do these things. But the ease of use and the user interface, the user experience, that is coming. Necessity breeds creativity. And that's showing up right now. That's what I see, at least.
And I would encourage everyone to download Wallet of Satoshi. It's by the Aussie guys that run Travel by Bit and the Living Room of Satoshi. It's like Blue Wallet. It's the most easy to use Bitcoin wallet and Lightning wallet. So when you say the power goes out, if we all have Bitcoin, we can pay each other. Look, if the network's busy and you don't want to wait an hour or fees are getting a bit high, it is honestly that easy to send you $10 over Lightning these days.
Yeah, and someone was making, and this is relevant, a little off the side, but someone was making this, and I'll actually preface the story. My grandfather used to give me a Morgan silver dollar for my birthday or for Christmas every year when I was growing up. And back in the day, it looks like a big quarter, right? I didn't care that there was silver in that. And it didn't occur to me that these are collector. I still have them, and I have started collecting them on my own. Morgans and peace dollars. These are obviously American currencies, but I'm sure you at least probably heard of them at least, if you're a collector for sure. But as I got older, my grandpa, I was like, Grandpa, why do you always give me these coins? Don't you want to keep them? He goes, let me tell you, first off, if you always keep one on you, you'll never go without a meal. You'll never go. You'll always have someone to take care of you because that's worth something because it's made of silver. And he said, I always carry one, if not two with me, just for that purpose. And I use that example now to think about how Bitcoin is going to be viewed in the future. Whether it be a Satoshi or whether it be, 100 Satoshis or 1,000, Satoshis are going to be very precious. And you can keep one Satoshi on a ledger wallet. You can keep, 100 Satoshis on one ledger wallet. Talking about an anonymous transaction, just hand the ledger wallet over with the appropriate amount, and you never even have to move it on the blockchain, right? Here's your keys,
Yeah.
reseat it, it's yours, right? Obviously, there's some security protocols you might want to follow just to ensure that nobody would, backhand you. But there is a lot of ways to do business on the blockchain and still remain relatively anonymous. I mean, the government can't stop you from handing over a ledger wallet. I mean, they can tell you it's not allowed, but I mean, what are they going to do?
Yeah, and these days we've got Lightning wallets that'll divide Satoshis up, so we can have like milli Satoshis and extend those decimal places. So there's even if Bitcoin, if Bitcoin goes to $100 million of Bitcoin and a Satoshi is now worth $1, even at that stage we can still divide up the unit. So yeah,
Alex, don't you think though at some point the governments are going to have to fall back onto something that has real value?
I do. The last thing I just wanted to say there was privacy is stepping up on Ethereum in a big way at the moment. We did a tutorial last week about Tornado Cash and how you can make your Ethereum private with ZK snarks and mixing them. And all that stuff is coming to Bitcoin as well. They're experimenting with Taproot, Dandelion, and Snore signatures. So Bitcoin is going to get even more private again. So as we say, maybe we don't even have to worry about handing someone a ledger. We can actually do private things on chain. But is the government going to step in? I think we're already seeing that in a big way. They're trying to crack down on these rules. But honestly, if things ever got really totalitarian, I'd probably move out of Australia and move to some developing country, nice place to live, nice weather. What else do you need in life? Like, I'm not one of those people that needs a big car and flashy stuff. If I've got the family and a good way of life, I'm more than happy. And if these countries crack down too hard, it's the same as all the innovation moving to Malta and out of the US and whatnot. They're going to be their own worst enemies if governments crack down on this too hard.
Oh, for sure, man. And I completely agree with you. I mean, look at Hong Kong right now, right? Look at the unification and what they're able to accomplish. I mean, China is looked at as the ultimate authority, I would say, in government. That's what I don't want to ever be, really relegated to as an American. Like, that's the anti-American to me, is that overbearing, internally, just overly intimate with your life. I just don't need that kind of, dealings with the government. That's not why I need government. I don't need a daddy. I got one of those already. I don't need a mommy. I've got one of those already. I don't need a nanny. I had one when I was 3, right? And I didn't even have a nanny. I'm just saying that for the point of the story is that's not what I want from government. I want to be left alone. I want constant appreciation and for one another. Like, without us, we can't pay the bill, right? Without them, there is a level of security that's no longer there in some capacity to the next.
Yeah, and going back to what our governments going to do when Bitcoin and even gold and that become popular in the sort of socialist movement, and people start to really say, well, hold on, if you're going to print this money and you're going to do negative interest rates, the US have got those unfunded liabilities. Once all this stuff starts to happen, very obviously, very obvious to the public that they're going to have to print so much to pay this pension. And every day there's 10,000 baby boomers retiring. The math just doesn't add up. You're going to have to print a lot of money, the US dollar, and every fiat currency is going to lose value comparatively. And that's when people can say, well, I'm going to park a bit of my wealth in Bitcoin or gold. And it's going to make governments more fiscally responsible. And maybe they're going to try and make it harder for people to go into Bitcoin and gold. But if you can get there, then it creates even more of a premium, like we see in those countries where it goes to the grey markets and you actually have to pay a premium to buy Bitcoin. So at the moment, we see the currency wars. The US dollar is getting stronger because all these other countries have to pay their debt in US dollars and their economies are weaker. Some people like to say the US dollar is going to tank because you've got all this debt. But I mean, comparatively, every fiat currency is going to tank while they've got all this debt. So it doesn't really matter what happens. But as long as Bitcoin and gold are mainly priced in fiat currencies, they're going to continue to go up.
Yeah, and I also say like that the euro and the US dollar are so intertwined in how they relate and how they work together that if one of them falls, it's going to be devastating for the entire world. It's not a singular event that the US dollar falls. It is that's what the world currency is, folks. It doesn't like just get better the day that the US dollar is no longer the world currency. It's going to be like a decade worth of like terror. And, I mean, really the end result of something like that is Bitcoin becoming massively adopted and accepted around the world, and it becomes a standard. But is that really what we want? And is that how we want it to happen? I don't want it to happen that way. I'd like to think of this fairy tale land over the next 120 years where, humans just realize, hey, this is a really great idea. I'm just going to use this. Can't happen that way. Won't happen that way, because as long as things are good, people ain't changing. So really, honestly, for that to happen, there's going to have to be a catastrophe of some sort, in my opinion.
Yeah, so just like zooming out, everyone gets so focused living their day-to-day lives and like checking a chart of Bitcoin. But if you zoom out and say, what is going on in the world at the moment with the trade wars and Europe and these different currencies? If you're the US and I'm Australia, and we're buying oil off you, and we have to do it in US dollars, now these countries don't really trust each other that much. You might say, well, Alex, you've been buying so much oil and gold lately. You've been buying all our resources. Where are you getting all this money from? And the fact is that they don't know. We just print it out of thin air. And so that, maybe the Aussie dollar falls with people looking at the exchange rates and the Forex markets. But at the moment, people don't know if China are just printing, crazy amounts of money to try and buy up all these resources and land across America and Australia. And at the same time, people don't know that the US haven't printed way more than what they're telling everyone. And they're buying.
They know, and they have.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, people are saying, well, hold on. We're doing all this international trade and we're buying and selling stuff off each other, but we've got no idea if they're lying to us and they're just printing money left, right, and center to buy as much as they can. And at that point, the other countries start doing this as well. And that's why we're starting to see hyperinflation in some countries, or everyone, Mark Carney, start to say, well, why is the US, why do they deserve this reserve currency status? They're getting too many privileges from it. So it really is heating up this whole, everyone's got fiat currencies. Everyone knows that it's not backed by anything. No one really knows how much the other's printed, and everyone's trying to buy the resources off each other. And there's no peg to gold anymore or to Bitcoin. What is the real relative value of anything in the modern world? And that's where we have to fall back on something that has a fixed scarcity.
It's so funny because this is all human created. Like this whole madness is like just a bunch of humans being greedy as hell. Like literally, that's what this is what this has evolved to, right? So what is the end result? Like, how do you see this ending right now, as far as on a world scale and where we stand today? Obviously, that's a very loaded and it's complete. Obviously, you have some experience and you've seen this stuff come through the pipelines before. But just overall, what are your high level thoughts?
I think when everyone goes down the rabbit hole for the first time, they want to believe that the market is going to crash and that we're going to have to turn to a gold standard and Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million. In that instance, what happens the next day, the next week, the next year? People don't ever think about, oh, hold on, is it just going to be Mad Max from that point onwards? No, governments are going to try things. The plunge protection team will step in. They'll suppress gold as long as they can to try and make the fiat currencies look better. So this is a bit of it's a slow unwind and a slow bleed. And that's the best scenario for Bitcoin, is just one by one, more countries, their currencies just go to shit. And they say, well, hold on, we've experimented with this. We might as well try Bitcoin. Venezuela and Argentina are doing some trade in Bitcoin. Russia sells some oil for Bitcoin or for gold, and more and more people just slowly say, well, we're going to trade in something that we believe is real wealth. And even some central banks have still got half or 2/3 of their reserves in gold. And
I mean, would you say it's fair that these governments understand this already? Like they're not idiots. Like government, we're at a high level here. We're talking about the people like in the CIA for the US, right? These people understand what Bitcoin is. They're not idiots. And therefore, you got to think that there is a preparation or some sort of at least idea about how this could be fit in and at what point they would want to assume or control enough to make their economy still work. And wouldn't this be the ideal time to collect it?
Yes, I definitely think so. No one really wants to be first, but then once one central bank or government starts hoarding Bitcoin or gold and making it very clear that they want to do so to make their currency more stable, then it becomes a race. But you Absolutely. Say governments aren't idiots, but I mean, look at even economists have been getting things so wrong. Central banks haven't predicted recessions. Every year they say that growth's going to get better next year and they get it wrong. So I think these people that are book smart and academically trained with their models, they still don't realize that they are wrong. And they think that as long as we get things chugging along nicely. Their economy will start growing again. And there's not this realization that, well, hold on, we're on this finite planet. We went off the gold standard that allowed us to borrow a lot from the future, but now everyone is really indebted. And at some point, this has to be paid back, and we can't keep growing. Mathematically, you can't keep compounding any number because it goes exponential. And that's kind of that tipping point which we're reaching now. So, if you're in Africa or a developing country, you've still got a lot ahead of you, like good things and growth.
Yeah.
But in these countries that are now overpopulated, getting very hard to even feed them, they've got huge debts to pay off, like everything from their house, their car, their fridge, their education. At what point does this all come back to haunt us?
Yeah, no, those are all great points. And I don't disagree with you, especially on the public level, right? Whether it be an economist. I mean, heck, why would they admit that they're wrong, right? Or why would they admit that it's going to fail or that there's going to be a recession? I mean, people would panic, right? I mean, I think we both can agree that the media at times can be, agenda driven. Maybe that's the right word. And, knowing that, I mean, I can't argue with anything you just said, right? It's the truth. My specific response or my statement was more so about the people in the back rooms who understand this stuff, who are really, and this is just for clarity, just for those listening at home. I just think that the governments have an idea about why Bitcoin is $10,000 or $8,000, $8,400, whatever it is today. I mean, it used to be $0, right?
And I think,
and not that long ago.
I think they, at the end of the day, do they really care? And I spoke about this in a video recently about inequality. It doesn't really matter if we have a crash or even a 20-year sort of sideways depression like we saw in Japan with no growth, because the rich, they've got enough money and they own their home. They're never going to go hungry. And that's what really worries me. And that's why we're seeing political uprisings, whether it's Hong Kong, Brexit, Trump, whatever you want to call it. People are sort of just asking for change or saying it's time to at least try something else because they're seeing what's going on around them, and what they're being told isn't how it's playing out in real life. So I think people can bring about change, and that's what we're going to see in terms of more protests, I think.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like, regardless whether you agree or disagree with a protest, they're gonna be there, and there are people who have different opinions than each other, and they're gonna continue to be that way. And you're absolutely right. And I think about this all the time. I mean, I'm not just saying this. 150, 200 years ago, your goal was to survive life,
yeah,
right?
Yes.
Your goal, literally, you woke up and you had to figure out how you were going to eat that day. You had to figure out how your kid was going to eat that day, your wife, your husband, whatever it might be. You literally woke up to survive. Now we wake up to, oh man, I got to go to work. I'm out of coffee. Oh, I got to go to the store when I get home. My dog's out of food. I mean, look at this abundance that we live in, right? And we're falling asleep, as you said, at the wheel to this abundance around us at the moment, without recognizing that it does not come for free. Like, this abundance, there was a moment in time where we got to it, right? It finally happened. We're here, we're abundant, and we've just wallowed in our own abundance. And it's becoming our, truly it's our death wish at this point, because we want to be lazier. And technology is allowing that idea to sit and fester in us.
And I think it'll bring about like social change as well, because you look at the kids today and all the, whether it's depression rates and all this stuff with social media. In Australia, Facebook and Instagram have stopped showing people likes. And that's the first step to, I think, people not comparing themselves to others and the popularity contests. We spoke about in the pre-interview, we live in relatively rural areas. We're both friends with Didi. We had the Bitcoin family on the show this week.
Oh, absolutely.
People are really going to go back and say, well, hold on, like, what is life all about when unemployment rates go up and we have the next depression or recession? People have had it so good. And as you say, what happens when, how do I put food on the table is the question, not how do I get 100 likes on my next Instagram photo. People are going to question what's important.
And don't get us, either one of us, wrong. We both do kind of care about those things too.
Oh yeah,
right, Alex.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I mean, but no, like, you're spot on. Completely agree with you. And I don't look forward to the day that survival is our future, right? But damn sure it might be the wake up call that it makes. If we get to that point, it is the wake up call. Unfortunately, we've had that wake up call. But I look at Bitcoin's role in all of this, and it's the stability. It is the lean on. This is how we can fix a lot of this madness by creating this really unbreakable. I mean, obviously, that's relevant to quantum computing's capabilities, but this where we stand and how we have the blockchain written in our own brains is not what it's going to be in 10 years, right? It's going to get bigger. It's going to get better. It's going to get safer. It's going to get more secure. It's going to get easier. All the things that we know today are not tomorrow, and they're not next year, and they're not next decade. It's only going to get better. And this is how we fix our problems. Is it going to be Bitcoin? I hope so. I hope so, Alex. But it might not be, right? It could be something else.
I think Bitcoin has evolved from that. And I know this is where it gets really contentious about should it be this peer-to-peer electronic currency. And now that it's become very popular and a bit more expensive, it's become more of a store of value to some people. But the developers are taking it slowly, and this is probably a whole other kettle of fish about trying new things to make it more efficient. You don't want to break a network that's worth $200 billion, so they're taking their time. But to some people, Bitcoin is still a good method of payment for moving money around the world with all its features. And then we've got the Lightning Network developing for smaller payments. But on top of that, you say, well, what if Microsoft came out and said, we've just made the most secure computing network in the world, but there's all these problems with hacks globally. What would that be worth? I think that would be worth a lot of money. And if Microsoft are now doing their IDs on the Bitcoin blockchain, more and more companies and other blockchains are going to piggyback off Bitcoin's proof of work security. So I think we're going to see renewable energy projects spring up and mine Bitcoin and make it more secure and make that local community more renewable. So Bitcoin has got so many features that a lot of people aren't aware of.
I mean, dude, it can literally be the epicenter of a community, right? I mean, you could plug in a mining rig of some sort powered by wind or hydroelectricity, and you could power and then mine at the same time your entire community, and then have abundance of wealth. And that's the Star Trek utopias, that I mean, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Jean-Luc Picard's my favorite, character of all time in any show or movie. And I'm a pretty libertarian minded individual, but when the replicator, I don't know if you're familiar with any Star Trek, but the replicator is, for those of you who don't know at home, the replicator is a device that you literally just plug in what you want, and it takes all the molecules and atoms and mixes them up and puts them together, and you got a hot cup of coffee because they know how to put it together, right? When that is created, what does money mean at that point?
And we're both familiar with Power Ledger. So just one of the things that they've been working on for a year or two now is called asset germination, where people can crowdfund renewable projects. So all of a sudden we say, well, let's forget about government not doing anything about the renewable energy, transformation globally. All of a sudden, anyone that owns cryptocurrency that wants to put in, Joe and I can say, well, yeah, we believe that this region here in Africa, their community would benefit so much if they had power there. They'd be able to have more fresh water. There's a mine nearby that's going to get their economy going, and you and I can fund that. And then they start mining Bitcoin with the excess power, and then all of a sudden that project becomes very valuable. So you and I can sell that, or anyway, we're owners in that project that we crowdsource the funding for, but the community's better off. There's more Bitcoin mining, the network's more secure, and all of a sudden you've got 1,000 of these projects popping up around the world, and everyone has got renewable energy and mining Bitcoin. So that's something very exciting that I know Power Ledger and plenty of others are trying to get off the ground.
No, it's actually an incredible effort and endeavor, and and in fact, I need to reach back out to Power Ledger because I'd love to have another conversation with David or Dr. Gemma and get a really inside perspective on that. And I know that as an Australian, you should be very proud of what they're trying to accomplish, and they've probably paved the way for altcoins in Australia in so many ways, at least in publicity and acceptance. So let's go back to Australia as a whole. What would you say the identity of Bitcoin is to most Australians?
I think Australians love a punt. They love to gamble. So the gambling apps, they're absolutely huge. I think per capita, Australia would have to be one of the biggest gamblers, globally. So when the Bitcoin came along and then altcoins, it was just crazy here because Australia's a fairly wealthy nation and people have that excess spending money. We've got a lot of rich, lower to middle class people that work in all the mines and whatnot. And a lot of those people were just putting in all their money that they make working on these mines and whatnot into altcoins. So that was a huge boom. So at that point, it was all about speculation. But I think a lot of people, even that would be listening to this now, would agree that they went down the rabbit hole from that point. They maybe invested in some bad altcoins. They now know the importance of Bitcoin and money. Like economics and finance was a boring topic. I never studied any of that at school. And the 10 years since leaving school, I now think it's one of the most interesting things you can learn about. So more and more people are realizing the importance of decentralized money and sound money, but then decentralization of other industries, whether it's on Ethereum or other platforms, with everything going on with our data and Facebook, Google, being able to have peer-to-peer applications. Absolutely. That's very cool. Yeah.
No, I mean, and I'm intrigued by how, at least sensibly speaking, the Australians take the ability to see past what's normal, right? And this is what Americans don't do. I mean, if I go down the street where I live and I say, if I say Bitcoin, most people have heard of Bitcoin to some capacity. But I would venture to say that 95 to 96% of all people that I ever asked, if they know Bitcoin or if they know what Bitcoin is or explain Bitcoin, they would say, I've heard of Bitcoin, but I just don't understand it, so I haven't messed with it. And I'd be like, absolutely, I completely understand that. There was a time in my life where I was the exact same way. Otherwise, I would have bought Bitcoin back in 2009, 2010, or mined it, and I'd be a super rich dude, and I wouldn't be doing no podcast. I'd be chilling on a beach, drinking a cerveza, right? Having some fun. Now, because I recognize that Americans are going to be the slowest to adopt Bitcoin because they just don't feel like they need it. Like there is no need for it. There's abundance here, as I said before. I am envious of how the Australians have, at least, for the most part, on a relative level, they've embraced what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain is able to do. We have tons of blockchain projects in Silicon Valley, and not just Silicon Valley, everywhere. And not one of them is like a staple to the country that just makes everybody so proud. Where Australia, I remember when everybody was rallying around Power Ledger and all the Australians were so proud. I mean, I'm envious of that community, that unity behind the, not in a nationalist type of way, but in a proud, this is where I'm from type of way.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, we live in this community, so it's hard. Maybe we're the same. Maybe 95% of people don't really appreciate Bitcoin or they're not interested. Sure. Because when you go to meetups and you're only in this community, you get surrounded by it. So, maybe from the outside looking in, it looks like that. But I think in terms of penetration and adoption, Australia wouldn't be that much higher than a lot of other places around the world.
Yeah, I actually did hear that in South Africa, like 11% of the entire country has owned cryptocurrency at some point, which I thought was a really high number and really cool. I don't even know. I can't even cite the facts on that. This is just what a South African told me.
Well, that's the countries that have the biggest opportunity, the countries that have populations in the billions, and some of them in developing nations don't have banking infrastructure. And they're starting to get, Rwanda in Africa the other day announced they've got their own cheap smartphone. So once everyone has a smartphone, like 90% of people have a phone now, 50% a smartphone. So once everyone has a smartphone and they've got 4G, 5G internet, it doesn't matter that they don't have banks or copper phone lines. People can start, transacting. And we did an episode with a little African community, and they can only get 1 month's worth of food at a time because no one will lend them money and borrow credit. So the stores get the stuff in on the first, it's all sold out by the second, and then they wait 28 days to get the next shipment in.
Wow, that's crazy.
So if they could actually have, finance in that area and e-commerce, then the local community would start to grow. There'd be little businesses, and they get an economy of sorts. So that's what's really exciting.
And think about the idea that as Bitcoin does grow, Bitcoin's got at least another decade in it. I'm not saying that it's ever going to end or die, but it's not going anywhere anytime soon, period. I don't care if Trump came out himself and said, you're going to jail. You know what's going to happen? Everybody's going to buy Bitcoin after that, right? Whoever it is, whether it's, China, it's just going to enhance the appeal because it becomes a little taboo. Now, regardless of even that situation, it's not necessary for people to pay attention or use Bitcoin. But, as the crediting, idea of like borrowing money, when you when you can prove over years and years and years that Bitcoin just keeps going up, right? I mean, think about like how safe the banks can be, assuming, we have a traditional banking system still in this scenario, that they can feel comfortable loaning, a certain amount of money out, knowing that they have Bitcoin to fall back on in case they don't pay, right? So 0.1 Bitcoin today is worth $800, but this loan is worth 2,500. Maybe they will be willing to take 0.08 Bitcoin for a 36-month loan on $2,500. I mean, that is a insane idea, because I mean, really, the banks might be rooting for you to default at that point, right? I hope you don't pay me back. I want your Bitcoin. I mean, that idea, it puts the power in your hands in so many different ways as somebody, and that's a true economy. That's based on real value, and Bitcoin does have that real value. Anyways, but I could talk about this forever, Alex.
That's kind of what the banks do with mortgages. They create money out of thin air, and they lend you money, and then if you default, they get a house for free. Like, it's crazy how that works. And
no matter how much you paid.
This is where DeFi is exciting, because at the moment it's all about having over collateralized loans. But if people believe that ETH is going to go up long term, or now we've got Maker that are going to introduce the multi-collateral DAI, so you can put other tokens, possibly even gold or something, behind it to get a loan. If you believe in crypto long term, that loan pays itself off against the Ethereum you've got as collateral as Ethereum goes up. So yeah, DeFi.
Yeah, just think about this. If you have $1 million US, Alex, and you had that in 1920, and you put that in the bank, right? $1 million US back in 1920. I mean, that'd be like being Bezos today, right? You'd be like the Amazon owner. And today, $1 million doesn't even sustain you for a decade. It won't. I mean, even a basic human being, right? I mean, someone who's making $45,000 a year, they can't live 20 years barely on $1 million. And that used to be like the gold standard of being good forever, right? Like, you had $1 million, you're a millionaire, you don't have to worry about nothing else. But now it's like, it's basic. It's like barely enough.
Well, I think our parents probably lived through the best time to be alive in history, because you say $1 million in the bank, but if they had that in a high interest savings account, there were periods when they were getting 10 or 15.
Fair.
10 or 15%. But that has changed, as you say. Now that $1 million in the bank is going to have a negative interest rate for the foreseeable future. So that time of just being able to accumulate wealth and retire is gone.
There were some glory years, many of them at that time period. And yes, I guess I was just using that as an example to say, I mean, it almost devalues when you could have bought gold and it would have gone up even more. Although you still would have been better off buying gold back then,
Yes.
But nevertheless, yes, you're absolutely correct as far as that. But right now, hopefully this doesn't last too long, but negative interest rates, man, that's scary. That is the beginning of totalitarianism, right? I mean, it's scary to me.
Yeah, well, negative interest rates, people don't understand how these work and why people are flocking to bonds with negative interest rates. But at the moment, central banks are promising that they're just going to keep buying bonds. So investors don't care that it has a negative interest rate, because they're banking that, pardon the pun, that the central bank will come along and buy it off them for a higher price. So can you imagine if the Fed or the RBA in Australia said, oh, we're going to buy $40 billion of Bitcoin a month for the foreseeable future? What are you going to do? You're going to go and buy Bitcoin because you know that there's a buyer no matter what. And that is what's happened in the stock market, the bond market. It is just crazy where this is.
But what happens when they don't?
Exactly.
What happens when they tricked you? And that's what scares me, is the power is out of your hands. You're relying on the word of the government, which is, frankly, as we all know throughout history, no matter what country you live in, they've lied to you in some capacity.
That's what people have just realized in the past few months. The Fed said, we're going to stop buying. The markets turned in last December, and they said, okay, well, let's start doing these repo markets. It's just going to be overnight. And now it's, we're just going to start some more operations. The truth is they can never stop this. And that's what the global investing world is realizing. It's what the conspiracy theorists, we knew this was coming all along, that you can't ever stop QE and money printing. And that's why gold and Bitcoin are going to boom long term.
Yes, agreed. And that is where we can slow it down. And Alex, I think that was a great final statement. Bitcoin's safe. It's about as safe as you can get. I don't care what the price is today, and I don't care what the price is tomorrow, because I can live off fiat until then. That's the way I see it.
It's been a fantastic chat, Joe.
For sure. Hold on, because we got the quick fires. All right. So
Okay,
at the end of each episode, I do a quick fire, a little off topic, some a little bit relevant. I tend to ask the similar questions to each individual, but this is not a right or wrong or a judgment of any sort. It's literally just your opinion and what you think. So I'll start with my favorite question, and I used to do this a little bit more in the middle, but I like to get this one out of the way first because I get so excited to hear what your thoughts are. It's simple as this: have aliens ever visited planet Earth?
Yes, I believe so. Another one of my interests is documentaries about space. And once you realize how big the universe is and how insignificant we are, how old the universe is, then mathematically there's plenty of civilizations that are way more advanced than us. There's some great documentaries out there with enough evidence for me to think that yes, something has happened. It's normal for it to happen. It would be unnormal for it not to have happened.
And I'm not disagreeing with you nor agreeing with you, but the question is this: have they visited planet Earth?
Yes, I believe so. Yep.
Nice. Have you seen Bob Lazar's interview with Joe Rogan?
I've seen Bob Lazar. Some of the best work I've seen is Dr. Lear. Is it Roger Lear? He was a doctor that was helping, working with psychiatrists of abductee patients, and all of a sudden these guys went from skeptics to believers, and there's some good evidence out there if you check out his work.
Is that the one who passed away in the middle of that documentary, like Patient 18 or something?
Possibly, yeah.
Like there's this really cool documentary on Netflix, and I think it's called Patient 18 or Patient 17. Man, I don't want to ruin it, so I'll save the whole thing, but I could break it down like this. There are people on this earth who have random and weird stuff inside of their body, like pieces of metal that cannot be explained, nor do they have any, samples that would match how this stuff was created. And so this one guy, he's like a 6'8" ex-athlete, he's a middle-aged guy, mid-40s, maybe close to 50. He's been having this pain in his leg for a decade. And this guy finally is like, his wife convinced him, go to the hospital, whatever it might be. So they find something, and somebody like kind of whispers to him like, hey, look, man, this reminds me of something I saw. You might at least want to go check it out. And this is like and although I'm a man of faith and I do consider myself a Christian, I don't mean this in a bad way. He's as a Christian man, he does not believe in aliens. He does not have this idea that this would exist, and he quickly starts recognizing through other people who've had similar things in their bodies that this is really something that I need to be aware of, right? And I can't say anymore without.
And if some people even listening to this will say, no, that's just too far out. It's too wacky. But then you say, well, what does every scientist, on Earth do? They go out and they tag animals, they do research, and how is that any different? So yeah, I'm open-minded to the fact that that's probably happened.
Yeah, and of course, this all leads to have people been, abducted of some capacity and had these implants put inside of them, and anyways, I'll stop because I want to tell more, but I just won't want, because there's a really interesting twist to all of this, and it's a documentary. Keep that in mind, but there's a really interesting idea there. All right, so that's question one. Question two. All right, Bitcoin as a political party, yes or no?
Yes, definitely.
If you were Satoshi Nakamoto, what would you have named Bitcoin?
I think Bitcoin is perfect. Like I grew up in that age of playing Mario and the little coins and bits of coins.
Yep.
The other day I read something that initially it wasn't called a blockchain. It was called a time chain. And only later on did they change that name because of all the timestamps. So I think that's pretty cool.
Wow, that's an interesting concept. Yeah, time coin. It would be weird. It's really
weird.
Weird.
Time chain, I think it was called.
Yeah, or bit time. I'm just thinking of different things. Okay, so let's flip that question and say, if you had created Bitcoin, what would your Satoshi name be? What would you name yourself? Your pseudonym, your anonymous name.
It's hard to change now. The inventor of Nintendo, his name is Satoshi. Oh, it's very similar to Satoshi Nakamoto. So I always think, geez, is he the Japanese inventor?
It's like Noromoto or something.
Yeah, something very similar. But it's almost too perfect now, isn't it? The Satoshi Nakamoto name. No, I'd have to sit down and think of something pretty good because that's hard to top.
I know, but You have
Nugget
to.
coin. Nugget coin. Yeah.
Hey, there you go. No, you're just Nuggets, right?
Doesn't
Nugget
really have a
News.
ring to it.
It does. You've done very well with Nugget News. Maybe not as the creator of Bitcoin. All right. So moving on, Bitcoin, can it reach $1 million?
Yes. I've done a
In 20
three-part
years.
series. I've done a three-part series on this. Very much. If you look at the market cap, comparing it to anything that has value, gold, real estate, art, forex reserves, and the likely inflation that's coming, Bitcoin can very easily reach $1 million.
Fusahiro Yamauchi. That's his name.
Is it?
That's the founder of Nintendo. That was not the name that I was thinking of.
No, we're thinking of the
Shintaro.
the founder of Super Mario is what I might be thinking of.
Oh, Mario, maybe, yeah, maybe. There's Shigeru Miyamoto.
That is the one I'm thinking of, I think.
Yeah, that might be it.
Yeah.
All right, and so great question, great answer so far. I align with you in almost every answer that you have, to some degree or the next. All right, and so we'll finish it with this: best movie of all time. You can name two if you have to.
The Matrix. Now, when you first watched this as a kid, it's because of the flying bullets and whatnot. But the more and more times you go back and rewatch this now as you're older, you see the underlying messages. Now there's a little bit of religion in there, some people say, but the thing that interests me is people go their whole life going their 9-to-5 job, living in their little matrix, and they don't want to take the red pill. Some people, they take that red pill and they go down the rabbit hole, and all of a sudden they want to know how banks, debt, money works, conspiracy theories, whether it's aliens or whatnot. Even if this stuff isn't true, just actually questioning things outside of your day-to-day life of going to work for 40 years to maybe retire. What is the whole meaning of life if you just live in the matrix the whole time? So that is my favorite movie.
Yeah, and it's a very, very deep question, and it is unanswerable. And really, the more that you try to answer it, the worse it gets. You've really got to have a lot of guts to go and seek out what the matrix really means to you. Because I think it's all relevant to what we deal with regularly. I think it could even be a George Orwell style memory for many people in the future.
Is it all a simulation? So it's a great philosophical question.
It really is. Anyways, okay. Well, Alex, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I'm so grateful, man. I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. Thanks for, you're sitting on the other side of the world. I'm over here in the US. You're in Tasmania. We're having this wonderful conversation because we have the internet, the luxury of communication and video for that matter. If the explorers of yesteryear could even have a text message, they would have been, 500 years ahead of time, let alone just being able to video chat and record and produce information. We're very fortunate to live in this day and time. And as the future will always be able to say to some capacity, as long as there's no catastrophe or some horrible war again, we're only getting better, stronger, and we're fixing things one step at a time. And I think Bitcoin and blockchain are going to have a huge role in the future of the government and of humanity.
Yes. And without Bitcoin, we could not send money to each other right now.
You're exactly right. Not without having some permission and a few days between it.
Exactly. So,
man, that's incredible. It really is. Oh, Alex, where can people find you?
Alex Saunders on Twitter, Nuggets News on YouTube and everywhere else. But thanks for having me on, Joe.
Of course. Bitcoin Radio. Go and check out Alex's channel. As I mentioned before, he's doing great things. He was just recently named by Shapeshift as a top 10 cryptocurrency podcast. Maybe one day Bitcoin Radio can hop on that list. That would be amazing. But I know it doesn't come in 1 month. It comes with several years, the way that you've done it, slowly, meticulously, and with so much effort and precision. And this, the content that you're doing is great, Alex. And I'm really proud of your work.
Legend. Keep up the good work, Joe.
Well, until next time, hey, Bitcoin Radio, you know what's next. What are you doing for the cryptoverse? Do something. I know Alex is doing his part. I'm doing my part. We all have a journey. We all have a purpose. We all have a reason. Find it, love it, be it. Till next time, everybody. We'll see you soon.